Hello, everyone, and welcome to another opportunity to escape into the wilderness for a couple hours. And we're starting off here at Old Donyo this afternoon for Live at the Waterhole, and we have none other than the Tusker we all hope to see at this waterhole. It is One Ton, everyone, and he's been around for a while. Unfortunately, the other elephant at the back has not really turned around, so I can't tell if it's One Ton's mate, One Tusk, but they are often seen together. We've also got some eland in the distance there. Oh, maybe One Ton wants to come round and say hello to us here at the camera. Wouldn't that be special? Come on, One Ton. There we go. Oh, what a way to start off. Now remember that we are live and interactive, so send through questions and comments. You can head over to our website and register to do that. You can also use @FC in the YouTube chat, or if you'd like to, you can use the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter or X as well. Now, one of the things I love to do during Live at the Waterhole is take a slower pace, give ourselves the opportunity to just listen. And elephants are perfect for that. Oh no, One Ton. Don't walk away. Don't you want to spend some more time at the waterhole, please? Okay. Well, at least we got to see him. Yesterday during Live at the Waterhole. Oh, it is! Look! It's One Tusk, his mate! Oh, it's so nice to see them together. Elephant bulls often have companions that they stick around with. They don't form any kind of permanent grouping. I mean, One Tusk and One Ton could separate for quite a few days, but when they come together, they're basically companions. I think that's wonderful. I've been reading a little bit about One Ton recently because an organization called Big Life and also what's the name of the Great Plains Conservation, that's the other organization that's involved in basically custodianship over this area and the animals in it. And recently they wrote a really nice article about One Ton. I think it was published about a month ago. And we've been thinking about what injury One Ton could have had on his tusk, and they have confirmed that he's got a new crack on his tusk, which is probably what we were seeing when he was responding, or at least showing signs that he was struggling and feeling some pain. But apparently he's had injuries before that actually had to be treated. One was earlier this year in February. One Ton had a puncture wound in his neck that needed veterinary attention. And maybe his cracked tusk was also a result of the fight that he had with an elephant bull that resulted in his puncture wound. Not unlikely. And then a couple years back, I think in 2021, he also had a puncture wound at his neck again. Well, that was the first one that also needed treatment. So he's been through it. He's probably, I would say, about 40 years old. He's been known to Big Life and to Great Plains Conservation for about 25 years. And if you think about him being pushed out of his natal herd between, say, 11 years old and 15, kind of makes sense that he'd be around 40 years old. I wanted to share that with you, even though Wonton has left us now. Oh, hello, Eland. You come in beautifully. I love it when we're zoomed in and then animals just come into the frame unexpectedly. I love that. And now they all come through. So let's take a moment to. We saw the birds earlier. Let's watch the birds. Let's watch these eland. Let's listen. It's always wonderful sounds here at Old Donyo. You might also notice that it's quite overcast. Very flat white light. But beautiful nonetheless. Now, this is the dry season in this area, one of two dry seasons that they get in Kenya. But it's really nice to see that there obviously has been a little bit of rain. You can see the dampness around the waterhole, but you can also almost see it in the air. It's heavy. That's going to be very nice for all the vegetation, which means it's going to be great for all the herbivores like these eland. Hi, Grant DMV. Thank you so much for joining us. I was talking about Wantan and his injuries, and that led you to ask, how do they not get infections when they have all these cuts and gashes? That is an excellent question. And they do certainly get infections, but the majority of the time, infection sets in for quite significant injuries. When things are superficial, we don't see infection a lot. And that's a result of a few things. One, animals are living in the wild. If they were constantly getting infections and they didn't have an immune system that could deal with them effectively, they would die. And so the environment favors those animals, those individuals that are able to fight viruses better. And those are the ones that persist and reproduce. So if it was not, if individuals were not able to fight viruses effectively, then species very quickly would become extinct. So they have an excellent immune system. They're constantly exposed to viruses and bacteria and fungi in the environment that they have to fight and get better at fighting and more effective at fighting. And the only time we really see infection is when there are very deep, nasty wounds. Wounds that they're likely to not survive if they didn't have some kind of intervention. I wonder if we could just zoom out a little bit. I can hear impalas. Um, Sounds a little like a. No, it sounds like an alarm call, potentially sort of like a dominance call. Ones we associate with the rut. But the eland have also stopped and are a little alert. Yeah, but those sound like alarm calls. I think we should sit tight and just see what comes. We'll give it a few more minutes. Obviously, those in MC at the moment in the control room are going to be keeping an eye on this camera anyway, even if we're not on it. In the control room today, we have none other than Tadiwa. We've also got Jarrett there, we've got X there, Gwyn. I'm sure someone will keep an eye on this camera, but we'll give it a few moments just to see if anything pops up. Oh, a lovely giraffe coming through, but that wouldn't have been the reason for the alarm calls. We'll watch for a little longer. I can't hear those alarm calls anymore. But I think we should be quiet a little longer and see if we can pick up on them again. Oh no, it looks like the camera needs a little. Oh, we're back. All good. Well, those alarm calls have settled down, and now you can really see the cloud cover up ahead. And the thing about overcast days, any time of the year, even if it's the middle of summer, when there's an overcast day, it can mean that we can get predator action or predator sightings at any time. And those alarm calls were quite numerous, and I think there might be a predator around. But considering that they've subsided, maybe that predator has moved off away from the waterhole. Now, I heard an alarm call again just now, but the giraffe hasn't reacted to it at all, so it could also just be some impalas playing around. Well, while I know that there are many eyes on this camera, I think it would be nice to head down south towards Victoria Falls because there's some baboons on that camera and they're always entertaining to watch. Well, I can definitely see the warthogs, and there were baboons around. I'm sure they'll make an appearance in a moment. Now down here we would see chakma baboons. There we go. You don't see chakma baboons up in East Africa where we were just at Old Donyo. You'd see olive baboons and yellow baboons. Oh, we see a vulture going past. Marabou stork there. Lots going on at this camera. Wow, that's quite interesting. This individual seems to have a limp arm, or perhaps is actually avoiding putting pressure on that arm because it's injured. But it almost looks like it's limp, like it's not usable. Joanne Mello, you say your friends, the baboons. Maybe you can ask your friend what's going on with that front left arm. It almost looked, well, I suppose no, not really paralyzed because it did put weight onto it for a moment, but it didn't seem to be able to move it very much. It was almost like it was using that arm like a walking stick. Lots of variety here at Vic Falls. We had marabou storks, the vultures come in, warthogs, herons, and of course the baboons. But everything's really peaceful. I think I might have almost fallen asleep. It was all so wonderful to listen to and to watch. But some action is unfolding back up at Old Danyo with the zebra. So let's head back up to East Africa. Oh my goodness, that is a lot of zebra. And they're all in the water. Well, I suppose when the elephants are not around, they've got to make the best that they can of this freedom. Shame, to the exclusion of the giraffe. Now, I'm sure we're going to hear quite a lot here. The movements of the water, we're going to might even see them getting a little irritated with each other, bucking, kicking, biting. Maybe a few calls too. tell and you say, oh, my screen just turned black and white. Sorry, it's a herd of zebra. There was so many zebras there. They did get quite excitable, but it definitely didn't detect as much conflict as there usually is when you see that many zebras in one spot. Now, when we see a huge group of zebras, those are not, all of them do not belong to the same herd. Those would be multiple herds meeting up in the similar area and obviously around a resource. And when that happens, there's always some sort of conflict. For one, they want to both have this resource, but now they're forced to share. And additionally, we know that zebra harems can be quite forceful about kicking individuals out, but also trying to pull individuals in. So one stallion could have been going after another stallion's females. All that takes place when they come together, well, forced to come together around a resource. Spencer, you wanted to know, when do zebra male foals get kicked out of the harem? So that usually happens once they are mature. Well, actually, even a little bit before they're mature. So anything from between, say, a year and a half to 2 years, they're going to be, they will voluntarily move out of the herd, but around that age, they're starting to be less involved. They're probably getting less affection from their mum, from other individuals in the herd. Their dad, the stallions, probably being quite aggressive towards them, and all those behaviors are cueing them to start moving off. So that happens between a year and a half, 2 years old. And then Brendan, you wanted to know, do the females in a harem ever have a conflict? They do. It's definitely not as violent as conflicts between adult males, but they do also have conflict. So in a harem, it's the adult male and several females, and those all belong to him. So zebras don't hold territory in terms of space, but those females in his harem, those are his territory. So that's what he's going to be defending, and fiercely. So when he acquires his first female, it's kind of like, this is going to sound weird, but it's like his first wife. And so she is the dominant mare in the group. Then he acquires another female, and that other female has got to be a little submissive to the first wife, quote unquote first wife. And so there's a linear hierarchy amongst the females in a zebra herd. So as you can imagine, there are fights every now and then, but those fights usually have to do with resources, or when I say resources with the females, it's things like safety amongst, or the safe position amongst the herd if she wants to suckle her foal, those kinds of things. And especially when there are lots of youngsters around, say every mare in the group has a foal, then space becomes a problem and they get a little bit more irritable, but those fights and conflicts are not nearly as violent as those between males. Oh, it seems that most of the animals have now cleared out. I don't feel too bad about that because I still have a feeling that there's a predator lurking amongst the bushes there at the back. And maybe when the waterhole is less busy, we see a lion come through and have a drink or something like that. Or a striped hyena in the middle of the day. My goodness, if we see a striped hyena in the middle of the day here at Old Donyo, we'll end live at the waterhole right then, and we would all feel pretty satisfied. Okay, how about we come back down to South Africa and head over to Tau at Madikwe Game Reserve and see what's happening there. Nice, lots of wildebeest. They've really been taking over this portion of the waterhole over the last few days. And I'm surprised at the water level here at Tau. It's still pretty significant. I haven't seen too much of those rounded edges. I'm pretty happy that the water is sticking around. That means more action for us during live at the waterhole as more animals come to take advantage of this resource. Nice, and some elephants. Oh, so much going on out here at Tau. Lots and lots of animals, but also very peaceful. The elephants are busy down. We've got a spur-winged goose there. Nice. Oh, hello, little baby. What are you doing? Trying to scratch itself with its trunk. Oh, I don't know about you, but I'm really, really getting sucked into this beautiful movement. The Zoomy is doing an excellent job of following these elephants' slow, controlled movements. They look so peaceful and so relaxed. They're definitely putting me into some kind of hypnotic state. And that's what Live at the Waterhole is about too. Yes, we get to move through the different cameras, but as you all know, I love taking these long moments of silence where we can just really get pulled in to the pace of the animals that we are watching. And with elephants, when they're nice and relaxed like this pace can really drift you off and allow yourself to be pulled in and allow yourself to drift in to kind of a daydreamy state, watching these animals, maybe dreaming that you are in here at Tau in Madikwe, enjoying these sights at the waterhole. Yep, I think the zebra on the left is epitomizing our relaxed, laid back feeling. Flat on the ground, enjoying that warmth, I'm sure. Oh, a little bit envious of that zebra. lovely and peaceful, but I think it's time to wake everyone up. Let's head over to Founders Lodge in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. There's two rhinos that have come down to the waterhole. Oh, isn't this lovely? It also looks a little overcast here in the Eastern Cape. Oh, and it almost looked like that rhino was looking at us as I was speaking. Very windy, as you can expect in this part of South Africa. You can see the treetops moving, but you can also see the ripples in the water. Oh, this is so wonderful! Giving themselves a little scratch on that rock, which looks like it's been placed there for this exact reason. Now, it was here at Founders Lodge that I first heard what a rhino can sound like if it's a little fussy. If it wants the adult to move, or it wants to suckle and it's not being allowed to suckle, and they make these gorgeous squeaks. I was hoping you might be able to hear that. But no squeaking today from the rhinos. And that was a wonderful sighting. Oh, it just makes for such a beautiful, beautiful scene here at Founders. I really enjoy the sound of the water too. Really nice, peaceful sounds here. But the rhinos have moved off now, so how about we head over to Vic Falls, where there's a giraffe coming down for a drink. Oh, nice, and a pied kingfisher as well. Was just hovering over the giraffe. There's always such variety at this waterhole. You could literally move around and look at so many different things at this waterhole. Already earlier, we saw the baboons and the hooded vultures, the marabou storks. There was a heron as well, and the warthogs. There's a few crocodiles that live here also. But let's see what else makes an appearance. Again, very, very nice and peaceful. This giraffe was a lot less confident than the giraffes we see up at Old Donyo that try to push their way in and will sometimes even drink if other animals are drinking at the waterhole too. This one had a quick drink and is off, and I think that we should head back over to Tao and see if any elephants or more elephants have made an appearance, perhaps even an ostrich. Oh, still lots of zebra in the background there. A good amount of birds wading through. And I'm sure there's still a whole lot of wildebeest over on the other side. Christian Hall, you wanted to know, are there any regions of Africa where black wildebeest and blue wildebeest live in the same space? I'm sure they are. I'm thinking about, so in Amakala Game Reserve, that's where I've seen a lot of black wildebeest. And I'm pretty sure I've seen blue wildebeest there as well. But it's sometimes difficult to answer these questions because where they would be naturally occurring versus game reserves that bring in specific species. So whether it's a natural occurrence or whether it's actually not a natural occurrence, but they are existing in the same space, there's lots of things to consider. But I'm pretty sure they both exist in that Eastern Cape area. Most often when you see black wildebeest, they're in areas with springbok and blesbok, so animals that are really well suited to more arid environments. But just like the blue wildebeest, they are grazers and they move through an area and clean out the grass pretty nicely. But black wildebeest, they're one of those animals that you almost only see on game farms where they've been brought in. And so they've been bred and then brought in because their natural range, or in their natural range, they have really been hunted. So if you're seeing both blue wildebeest and black wildebeest, you can safely assume that the black wildebeest have been brought in. So I'm thinking again of Amakala, and where I'd see the most black wildebeest was on a portion of the reserve that was actually not joined fully to the main reserve, so you could control populations. And I do know that blue wildebeest and black wildebeest can hybridize. Of course, that doesn't mean that they'll have offspring that will be what's the word I'm looking for? Not viable, because they can still hybridize, so they still exist. So they are, they can actually be born and live, but they aren't always fertile. That's the word I'm looking for, fertile. So even though they hybridize, their offspring is not fertile. And if you think about wanting to conserve different populations of animals, hybridization is probably not a great thing to be happening. And I can't say that I've seen black wildebeest pretty much anywhere else in the reserves I've been to in South Africa, except for Amakala and a couple of their neighboring reserves, because you can obviously you can see into those reserves. I've seen black wildebeest there. don't know about you, but I'm kind of really enjoying taking it very easy and slow today on Live at the Waterhole. Yesterday we had really engaging conversations and there was so much happening on the cameras, and today I'm very much getting sucked into just watching the movements of the animals. But remember that we are live and interactive, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. But if, like me, you're enjoying taking it easy, continue to do that. Well, we've seen lots of birds, lots of elephants and giraffes, but we haven't seen a buffalo just yet. So how about we head over to Kruger Shalati and have a look at a lone buff right almost in the river. Oh, well, he was in the river, but now he is out having a nice seat on the side and busy chewing away as buffaloes do. We've got some wagtails. Looks like a pied wagtail there, close to the buffalo. He looks very, very peaceful. Just chilling and enjoying, I suppose, the sunlight, the sound of the water. Not seeing a great deal of grass around. Oh, yes, there you go. He is sitting kind of in the middle of the river on a little island. Seems like a great spot to sit and chew your cud. No disturbances. If anyone wants to come to challenge you. You've got this entire moat around you. Now, they have been doing some construction around this area, so you might hear the occasional banging, but the buffalo doesn't seem to care at all. So I thought that that pile, I'm not sure what it is, over in the end of the island, I thought that might be a crocodile, but doesn't look like it anymore. Oh no, it is a crocodile! It is! What an interesting island this has turned out to be. Crocodile and buffalo minding their own business on opposite ends of the island. Not a care in the world for each other. Just chilling. That's really cool. I always like this camera. It's just so verdant and so full of life, even if there's not much happening. It just feels like there's so much potential. And it was nice to spend time with that buffalo and that crocodile. But there's a camera that we haven't visited in a while that I would really like to go see. And that's Jamala in Madikwe Game Reserve. And I think there's quite a lot happening there. Oh, yes. Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen this camera, and look how much water there is now. I remember the last time, I mean, it was quite a while ago before I took quite a long break from live at the waterhole. And before, there was so little water in here. And remember, they were still doing construction at the Jamala camp. Sorry, you would have just heard that kind of violent clipping in the audio. I hope it's all good now. But I always liked this waterhole because it's always been busy. We've had wonderful elephant sightings here. And now we've got elephants, giraffe, and zebra. Oh, and some wildebeest. very busy, lots of activity. But again, I feel like the animals have the same feeling we all have today, very slow paced, very chilled. Even though they are reacting to each other, everything is very relaxed. Anyway, we will come back to Jamala if it continues to be busy, but I want to head back up to Vic Falls. There's some Nyala there that seem to be enjoying some rocks. Oh, yes. Oh, these are kudu, not Nyala. Some kudu just enjoying a little bit of salt licking. Now, a lot of areas will actually put out these blocks that have salts and other minerals on them and leave them out in areas so that animals like kudu or nyala or giraffe or zebra, if they need to supplement their diet to include additional minerals, that they can at these blocks. Now, not all reserves do this. In fact, I think the majority don't do this because there are mineral rich areas where salts and minerals naturally occur and animals can behave in this way to supplement their nutrition. But in areas where those kinds of compounds are lacking, they can put out blocks like this. And as you can see, it is a huge hit with many a herbivore. Hi, Christian. You wanted to know if predators also use these? Generally not, unless there's something wrong, really. If you think about a predator's diet, it's quite varied. There's so many salts within our body. For one, I mean, basically, our bodies work on salts. Electrical impulses moving through our bodies to our brain, through our nervous system, all works on salt concentrations. And so there's a lot of salt in our bodies and the bodies of other mammals as well. And so predators are getting a lot of those minerals just from their prey. Now, when it comes to things like calcium, predators are getting it from their prey's bones. So they don't really need to supplement their nutrition in the same way as herbivores do. Now, even still, herbivores don't necessarily need to lick a salt block, but it's still appealing because it's an available resource. Because calcium, phosphorus, salts, they occur naturally in the environment. They're just not occurring in freely available areas, or at least here. Now, that doesn't mean that in this Vic Falls area there's not a single spot where there aren't some of those minerals. There definitely are. But imagine you got a salt block just sitting here. Why not take advantage of it? And that's what it does. It just increases the amount of resources available. Now, again, this is something that we see, or behavior that we see if we're talking natural environment. We see this when there's some kind of limit in the resources. So now we know that it's the dry season. So in the plants that herbivores are eating, they're going to be limiting the nutrition that goes up to their leaves. And that's the plant's way of conserving its nutrients for its own growth. But that also means that herbivores are not getting as much nutrition out of eating those plants during the dry season when the plants themselves are trying to conserve their resources. And then actually that um, also goes to Hey Forty's question as well. Why do they lick that salt block? Does their food lack what that gives them? Sometimes, particularly in the dry season. Now, these minerals can also be found in water. But again, it's like having a, a snack basket just there waiting for you instead of you having to go out and search for snacks at a grocery store. It's a resource that's available, so lots of animals are going to take advantage of it, even if they don't necessarily need to at that point. Now, generally, Hey 40, in their diet, they should be able to get their requirements, their mineral requirements from their food. But like I said, in the winter, there will be less of those available to them as plants start to conserve their own minerals to go through the winter. Oh, this is nice. The warthogs come through now. I suspect the warthog will not need that supplement as much. Warthogs dig a lot, and a lot of these minerals can be found in soil. So I would assume that they pick up a lot of the minerals just from what they eat because they're digging up tubers and bulbs and things like that. But that doesn't mean it can't be interested, come through, have a taste, and then decide it's not for it. Pinnakin, you wanted to know if these salt blocks melt away during the rainy season. Sometimes they do, other times they might be removed. And it's not just salts, it'll be fortified with other sorts of minerals as well, particularly things like phosphorus, even zinc. All of those are really important for animals. And I suppose ultimately, coming back to basically most of your questions when it comes to the salt block, animals don't need it, but it is a good way for a reserve to make sure that any deficiencies are taken care of. So it basically is a way to maintain a healthy population. Interestingly, I mean, it sounds really nice that reserves can put this kind of effort into making sure that the animals in the reserve are healthy. But it seems that the animals that visit salt blocks like these, so ones that are brought in by people, it seems like the majority of animals that kind of monopolize it tend to be large herbivores. And so there's quite a lot of discussion around whether um, these kinds of salt blocks that are artificially placed in reserves, whether they favor better health in large herbivores, and large herbivores need more resources and more space, and whether in the long term it can create a situation where the population of large herbivores exceed the carrying capacity of an area. And the carrying capacity is just what an area could sustainably hold of different types of animals. So, for example, if elephants or the number of elephants exceeds the carrying capacity for some reserve, that means that it is no longer sustainable. So the amount of vegetation and the time it takes for vegetation to regrow would not happen quick enough to feed the growing number of elephants. So it's just about that the sustainable nature of wild spaces. And so ordinarily carrying capacity is not wasn't a big deal, you know, 500 years ago, because they, or I should say maybe like 1,000 years ago, because there weren't fences blocking off certain places from other places. So the only boundaries were geological or topographical, and rivers, things like that. And so animals could move, and so carrying capacity couldn't really be calculated. And animals can continuously move, and that helps to maintain balance. Now that we have reserves where it's specific areas, those areas may be fenced, they may border urban areas, all those kinds of things. Now we have these small pockets of habitat that have a specific carrying capacity, because once it exceeds that, then the whole habitat will sort of go off balance. So there's an interesting discussion happening at the moment about these salt blocks and whether they positively affect larger herbivores to the exclusion of smaller herbivores, and then promote larger populations of these large herbivores, and then could eventually, in the long term, exceed carrying capacity. Really interesting discussions. None of those things are, there's still hypotheses and discussions and throws to the future, but they're always interesting things to learn about and to discuss. And that's what I love about Live at the Waterhole. We get to sit, get pulled in to the environment, the habitat, and the animals, and get to have really nice discussions. And today was very much about just chilling, relaxing, watching, listening, and very much adopting the pace of nature, which I love. And thank you all for sticking around. I hope that you got nice and sleepy. You can have a good nap. And thanks for your questions and your comments. See you tomorrow.